Am I allowed to pull a Ndamukong Suh in this one? Huh? Can I do that in my press conference? Get away with it? As I mentioned after the game, very embarrassing loss for us. Offensively, I didn't really feel that we played minor football. Again, my responsibility, I'll make sure that necessary changes are made that we do. We had 4 turnovers offensively. 2 of those resulted in touchdowns. We also had a safety in that game. So there's the story of the game. I really felt our defense played extremely well, certainly well enough for us to win the ball game, but that wasn't the case. We're -8 turnovers on the year. We only had 22 rushes, including quarterback runs. That's not the formula for us to win games. And again, I applaud the defense. They only gave up 9 points in the ball game, but we didn't score enough points to overcome that. Offensively, we talked about going into the game having 0 turnovers, and as I mentioned, 4 interceptions, 2 return for touchdowns, and a safety. Extremely poor production there. We talked about starting fast. We only had 3 first downs in the first half. That's not starting fast. We talked about staying ahead of the chains, and our formula for that is no penalties, which I was pleased with. There was no penalties offensively in this game. We talked about having no negative plays. There were 4 tackles for losses for -10 yards. We didn't accomplish that. We talk about no sacks. We had 2 sacks in the game. And we talk about no drops. Those are the things that put you behind the chains. We had 5 in the game. 2 by Plinky, 2 by Autre, and 1 by Cole. 4.5 a rush is our MO. We've not been running the ball effectively the last 2 games, and we need to come up with a formula to do that efficiently, or we'll struggle offensively. We only averaged 2.7 a rush. Our play average was only slightly below 4 yards, which is unacceptable. We were only 24% on third downs, 33% in the red zone. Time of possession was in their favor. And overall, we had 6 3-and-outs. I could read that 100 times. That's as poor of offensive production as you'll ever see. And we need to get that corrected quickly. As I mentioned defensively, I really felt our defense played well enough to win. I think it was our best outing of the year. Our goal was to stuff the run. They averaged 2.9 per rush, but sacks are included in that, and they did pop 1 quarterback run late in the game. But number 2, who I felt was an excellent running back, he did have a 4.8 average and 133 yards, so we needed to do a better job setting the edge on some perimeter stretches because he bounced some things and made some yards. I talked to the defense about being ready for something new. They seem to be the type of team that does that each week. They presented a lot of new formations in the first half, and I felt our communication was much better in this game. I felt the emotions were handled better. We really had only 1 flare control issue, which we had several the week before, and I thought they did a good job with that. We talked about starting fast defensively. I think they did an excellent job of that. There was only 3 first-half points by UT San Antonio. We talked about having disruptive plays, and in my mind, disruptive plays are hits on the quarterback, sacks, and tackles for losses. I think we accomplished that. We had 5 sacks in the game, 11 tackles for losses, which is really the most since we've been here, and 3 quarterback hits. We talked about forcing 2 turnovers. We only forced 1. That was a high snap that really was a great effort play by Nick Usher, hitting the quarterback and then wrestling the ball from him. Put our offense in good field position, which we did not take advantage of. In particular, I thought we did a good job on third downs. They were 27%. Of course, 9 points total. It doesn't reflect on the scoreboard because we're a team. It was 25, but only 9 was given up by the defense, and 50% red zone score. So defensively, I really felt that they played an excellent game across the board. Alvin Jones, in particular, had an outstanding game. He had 10 tackles, 3 tackles for losses, 3 sacks, and a quarterback hit, and that was in 2.5 quarters because Alvin does rotate in there some, and then he was injured in the second half. He did not play the remainder of the game from that point on. So his production the last really 3 weeks has been on a record clip. And unfortunately for us, he was injured in that game, and his availability for this game remains to be seen. But I really feel since we've been here as a staff aside from last year's UT San Antonio game and the Southern Miss game, I really felt probably this was our third best game defensively that we've played. So that was encouraging moving forward. Special teams, it was hit and miss. Punt, we did drop one snap, but I think Luna did an excellent job of regathering himself, handling it, and he ended up getting a 51-yard punt out of it. He's been punting very well. 46.9 average. He had a long of 53 and put 2 inside the 20. So he's been pretty consistent all year. We got to handle the snaps better, especially in wet weather conditions. Punt return, Jaquan had a nice 16-yard return. Haven't had any issues with his returns when he has the ball in his hands. The issues that we got to clean up are fielding punts and making good decisions. Again, we fielded one, came close to fielding one inside the 10, and then we put one on the ground that resulted in another turnover that the defense did a nice job putting out that fire. But we can't turn the ball over on punt return, and we have to make the right decisions or there may be a switch there. I'm going to give Jaquan an opportunity to make that right, and I trust the young man who will do that, but we got to be better decision-making there because he does have good return ability. Kickoff cover, I think we had great coverage after the safety, a good kick by Maddox, but we did give up overall a 23-yard average. Our goal is to be inside the 20 every time, but consistently throughout the year they've been pretty good. Kickoff return, we had a bad night, and again, much like offense, we got to go back to the drawing board as far as scheme, personnel, to best utilize, which I feel is an unbelievable kick returner. So we have not been productive in that area. And then PAT field goal, we had a high snap that was kind of bumbled, and Maddox didn't put it through, and that was his first missed field goal of the year. Go right back to him because I think, Maddox is a very reliable kicker. As I mentioned after the game, I really feel that we need to find an identity on offense. We cannot be back there throwing it close to 50 times a game and not run the ball efficiently and think we're going to win games. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to switch quarterbacks, okay? I know Metz had a tough game, but I trust the young man. I'd mentioned I'll always go with a hot-handed quarterback, but I'm also never going to give up on somebody after one game. And, he had a tough night, but he also did some good things out there. And I admire his toughness and his competitiveness and his will. And I think he's going to be just fine. We got to help a young quarterback out. And I said it after the game in the press conference, and I mean it now. It wasn't that kid's fault. We got to help him out as a staff, as a team. And I think you'll see drastic improvement from him. As I mentioned after the press conference, you can say it's lip service or whatever. I believe it because I speak from the heart. I'm the head coach. I'm to blame. And it's also my responsibility and opportunity to get this thing fixed. We're dealing with a very banged-up team, and we can't get frustrated by that, okay? But I'll just use as reference. The Cowboys lose 2 players, okay? Look at how they're handling that situation. How's that working out for them? Well, we've got 12 out. And 10 of those 12 for the season. So we're dealing with a short deck right now, and we're going to have to find a way to win games because ultimately it's about wins and losses. Talking about FIU, they're in the same situation as us record-wise. They're 2-3, 0-1 in Conference USA. Turnovers, they've been not turning the ball over often on offense, 6 turnovers, and they've gotten 6. So they're at even play as far as turnovers are concerned. Time of possession has been in their favor. They're a ball control offense. Offensively, they're averaging 21.4 yards a game. They try to establish a run, 3.8 per rush, 124 yards rushing. Quarterback's doing a nice job for them, 232 yards passing a game. They're averaging 9.3 a catch. So they're sitting right at 356 yards a game. They've been good on third downs, 48%, which is excellent. And they've been good at red zone touchdowns, 69%. They've only given up 6 sacks. Which is great protection, and as I mentioned, they haven't turned the ball over. And they're a young offense, 2 freshmen, 4 sophomores, 4 juniors, only 1 senior. So they've got some young tools there. It all starts with their quarterback. He's doing a nice job for them. 10 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, right close to 65% completion percentage, managing the game well for them, and he's athletic. He's also their second leading rusher, 4.1 average with 139 yards. So, again, another mobile quarterback that we're going to have to contain. I think their running back, Gardner, is a nice running back. He's built stocky, 5'10", 192. He's got 315 yards rushing, 3.6 average, 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 61 yards a game for him. They got 2 really good tight ends. Okay, and we see a lot of spread teams that don't even utilize tight ends. We saw a great tight end last week. This team's got 2. Kreiner, 6'4", 235. He's averaging 10-3 a catch and 2 touchdowns. And then Jano Smith, this guy was an all-conference player last year and was a freshman all-conference player 2 years ago. They got 2 excellent pass-receiving tight ends. And then they got a big-time receiver, number 81, Owens. He's a sophomore. He leads their team in receptions, 29 yards, 12 yards a catch, and he's got 5 touchdowns. He can take it to the house, and he's got juice. He's got a long of 75. So they've got weapons on offense, and they do a nice job with a very athletic offensive line. The strength of their team is their defense. This is an extremely stout defense. It all starts with their 2 defensive ends. 2 excellent players, Perrine and Wakefield. Perrine has 4 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss, and 2 forced fumbles. The other defensive end has 2 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 2 forced fumbles. Those are all off of sacks. So these guys disrupt the edge. They play in the other team's backfield. They've got one of the best secondary players in our conference. He was 2-time all-conference. Leonard, the cornerback, he's 3rd in the team in tackles. He's also their number 1 punt returner. He's also their number 1 kick returner. He's the best player on their team athletic-wise, and he's kind of like Autry Golden. He holds all their records as far as returns there at FIU. They base out of a 4-3 scheme, and their linebackers have been very productive. Witt has been leading the team in tackles with 41 tackles. He's made splash plays, interceptions, tackles for losses, and fumble recoveries. And the other linebacker, 51 Williams, is 2nd on the team in tackles. So they're getting great end play, they're getting great linebacker production, and they got a guy in the back end that can cover you down. Their 3 linebackers are 3 of their top 5 leading tacklers, which you would expect in a 4-3 scheme. They're a veteran defense, unlike their offense, a little bit younger. On defense, they got 5 seniors that start for them, 3 juniors, and then 3 sophomores. They've been disruptive. Last week they had 3 sacks and 7 tackles for losses versus UMass, and they got 4 different players with interceptions. They're only giving up 23 points a game. Very good at stopping the run, only 3.6 yards per carry. They've been very good on 3rd downs. Opponents have only had a 36% success rate on 3rd downs, and they've been very good in the red zone. Teams have only had a 50%, 8 out of 16 success rate in the red zone. As I mentioned, they've gotten 9 sacks, 30 tackles for losses, so they're averaging 6 tackles for losses in a game, athletic, penetrating 4-3 defense, and they cause disruption. And they've gotten 4 turnovers. Special teams, they got very good athletes across the board on special teams. Their punter's averaging 42 yards per punt, hasn't had any blocked, okay? They've used 2 different punt returners, okay? And punt return also, number 3, Leonard, 5.9 average, 16 long. And then kickoff return, he's averaging 21.5, long of 30. But this guy, again, has been a staple for them for a couple years now. He's the best player on their team. Kickoff coverage, again, very strong unit. They're only giving up 18.6 per return, and they got a strong kicker. He's had 6 touchbacks, number 43. PAT field goal, they're 9 of 11, 4 or 5 field goals. They have had 1 blocked, and their kicker is also their kickoff cover guy. So very athletic team, very strong on defense, and again, they're getting good quarterback play. They're running the ball efficiently, and they have some weapons as far as skilled players are concerned. So we're going on the road, playing there at noon. We're going to have to be very focused, and we're going to have to assemble a game plan that utilizes our talents. Again, that's on me. We got to get that done and do a better job of doing that. And again, I'm looking for improvement in every phase, in particular on offense. Questions? Fisher will be out, and it'll be hit or miss on Harrison. Well, I want to get back to establishing a run, because if you can't run the football, your play actions are dead. And if you're throwing it 50 times a game, you kind of saw the result of some of the negatives that can occur when you do that. Now, we have been forced our hand as far as doing some one-back stuff because of the absence of Darren LaFossa at fullback. We're hoping to have back a healthy Darren LaFossa. Darren didn't practice all week and wasn't really declared even able to participate in a minimal basis until about 5 minutes before the game. So that'll certainly assist us. Darren's an excellent fullback, and we got to utilize his talents. We got to get guys in position to make plays. In particular, guys like Autry Golden. We got to get the ball in his hands. We got to get the ball in the running backs' hands that utilize the runs that they do best. And we got to do a better job of springing holes for them up front. We got to challenge the offensive line because I do think we got a very strong offensive line. We got to be better, and the last 2 games indicate that. We got to be better there. So again, I am not blaming anything on Ryan Metz. In fact, I blame myself for that because we got to do a better job of protecting that young man and putting him in the best position to make plays. We got to have creativity everywhere on offense. We got to generate first downs, and however we need to do that. But we cannot be lacking in time of possession. We cannot be turning the ball over. It's opposite of the formula we're trying to accomplish here. And we want to be balanced, not tilted in the favor of 50-22. That's not the formula that's going to work here, not as long as I'm the head coach. So we have to fix that, and that's on me. That ain't going to break that young man. In fact, I view emotion as this kid loves the game. I ain't got no problem with anybody getting emotional. Hell, you should have seen me driving home. You know what I'm talking about? I'm emotional too. So I don't knock a guy for being emotional. And I don't knock a person for showing their emotions in front of other people. He cares about the game. So that ain't going to faze that young man. He's going to come back ready to work, and we're going to make sure we do the right things to protect him and help him out. It's both. Again, utilizing the players that can make plays. I understand we're limited as far as guys that can do that, but the ones that do, I think there are guys that can make plays and do things well. We got to utilize those type things. Schematically, I'm telling you right now, throwing the ball 50 times a game and running at 22, that don't work for us. And that'll never happen again as long as I'm the head coach here. Okay? I hope to. I really do. I want to get that young man going. I think he's got talent. And, again, that'll be a part of, trying to fix some things. But I do view him as a very talented young back, and we got to get him going a little bit, give him opportunities.
Do you prepare any different for a game that's 10 o'clock local time? East Coast?
Well, fortunately for us, we practice in the mornings, so it won't be unusual for us. These kids get up every day at 5 o'clock. We're here meeting at 6. They practice at 8. So even though it is a 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock kickoff for us, our kids are used to working at that time. Playing a day game in the heat, we're going to have to really do a great job this week of hammering home hydration. It's a cooler week here for us, but it's going to be warm when we play down there. So we're going to have to hydrate. I'm going to kind of ease off the pads a little bit this week because we so are banged up to the point where I'm not going to do that. We got to get healed up, and again, that's on me. And the rash injuries. I do want to say this. I've been on many teams and I've gone through it. Doing the pointing game, the blame game, that don't work with me, man. I've been on teams where if there's a bunch of injuries, they fire the trainer or they fire the strength coach. That's BS, man. Injuries can happen at any time in any game. If anybody, I got to look at myself, how we conduct camp. Probably did a little too much banging. You know what I mean? We won a lot of live periods in camp, and that equivalates to, getting worn down a little bit. So if anybody's to blame on that, that's me. And, again, I got to evaluate and do a better job of that going forward. But before articles are written about who's to blame for all these injuries, that's BS, man. Injuries happen, and I don't buy into that stuff. Anybody got anything else?
Coach, at Arkansas, you talked about wanting to be aggressive in the past. Did you think at all about making them punt there with 11 seconds to go?
Well, we're thinking about getting off the field so we can get struck by lightning with 11 seconds to go.
You agreed to wipe out that 11 seconds.
We both agreed to it mutually. You know, and with the weather conditions at that time, I'm probably thinking in their mind, they were probably worried about us coming after it and mishandling a punt. In our mind, kind of worried about fielding a punt with only 11 seconds to go. And really, we kind of met at midfield. He's a great guy. We communicate great with each other, and we both felt at that time, you know, and I didn't tell him we were going to come after your punt. We didn't tell him we were going to field it, or run a fake or anything like that. But we both said, let's just get this thing over. Because what I didn't want to do at that time, we had already sat in the locker room for 30 minutes. I didn't want to have to go sit in there another 30 minutes, come out for 11 seconds, then going back for another 30-minute halftime. That was basically the decision that was made. So we called the commissioner, and he okayed it, and we both agreed to it as coaches. And if he approached me with the same thing, I would have done the same thing. You know what, and I felt the kids had great energy. They were focused in the locker room. They came out, you know, again, it was just boom, turnover. Safety resulted, boom, turnover. And that was the story of the night. The energy on defense didn't change. I thought they played with great energy all night. And again, the final score doesn't indicate that. But they held those guys to 9 points, and they put them in tough positions. They got the ball for us offensively on a short field, and none of that was taken advantage of. So that's the thing that I'm frustrated with. You know, as I watch the film, there's not an issue with any one of our players' effort. I mean, these kids are playing their hearts out. And we're a little outmanned, you know what I mean? So when you're outmanned, you got to do something to help these guys. So I'm not upset at one player on our team. I'm not upset at one player's effort. In fact, I applaud their effort. They've been playing hard. We just got to play smarter. And we got to do a better job, starting with me, to help these guys be in good position to make plays. Anybody else? Thank you.